Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. I'm Sophia with Garden State Film Festival. It's the 21st anniversary from March 23rd to March 26th. You can check out over 230 films across 9 venues in Asbury Park, New Jersey. One of the awesome films you could check out is the short film Bad Beat. It is a homegrown short in New Jersey. We got the writer and director in the room, David Ambrose. David, thanks so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking the time to interview me and to be selected into such a great festival. Very excited.
I know. I love this festival. I'm so happy to interview my New Jersey filmmakers, and Bad Beat is such an awesome film, so I'm excited to talk to you about it.
Great.
Um,
Yeah, I'm excited to talk.
yeah. So before we get into it, can you tell everybody a little bit about yourself and about the film?
Yeah, absolutely. It is a homegrown short, as in I am from New Jersey. I live in Clifton, New Jersey. I've been here my entire life. I'm 24 years old, and I made Bad Beat as my first narrative short film right when I just turned 22. Yeah, so I just turned 22, and I had a month off from school, and like everybody else, I was gonna shoot something way before COVID happened, and then COVID happened, so I had to wait a long time. But I used that time from spring of 2020 to January of 2021 to write a lot more, to read a lot more, and to watch a lot more, and that's how Bad Beat became what it was. And I shot it during the end of January of 21, and it was all done in my friend's apartment. And having a film take place primarily in one location to me is such a beautiful thing as a director. It's so much fun because it makes you think, makes you be creative with the camera. And so production, like I said, took place in one location, studying a lot about camera movement, character blocking, and again, just to be creative with what you had. We used natural lighting as well because I couldn't actually afford lights. So we had just the sun come out of these two giant windows. We had a bounce board as our fill light, and we had the sun as our key, obviously. So once it got dark, we couldn't shoot anymore. But all of this really, like all these limitations, was not something that held us back as production. If anything, it
Mm.
made us adapt. And yeah, I'm really happy how it came out, and I feel like it's a really from New Jersey type film with like the theme of it
Yeah.
being. I've heard it like because I went to a different state for it, and I actually went to South Dakota with the film, and oh my gosh, like they just kept implying that I was like a huge fan of The Sopranos because I'm from New Jersey, and this film has to do with like a little bit of like crime, so it was pretty funny. So,
Mm.
uh, yeah, I'm really glad how it came out and everything.
Awesome. And I love to hear that you kind of adapted and the constrictions that you had actually made you more creative and innovative. So really awesome to hear. What was the inspiration for the story of Bad Beat? I saw on
Mhm.
there you were inspired by like French New Wave, 90s era, which I totally saw in the film. It's all black and white. Like, what were the inspirations for this?
So the inspirations, honestly, so much of the inspiration had to come from the limitations itself, because as a director, my biggest thing is like because there's a lot of short films out there, and what I want to do is really create realism in front of a camera to then put into a screen to show an audience. And so I took what we had as limitations. I couldn't afford a gaffer. I actually wasn't a film major, so I didn't have the school help me out at the time, which was really a big bummer. I still never really liked that because I was a student at the time. So we were using the sun as our key light. We had one apartment. So I said, okay, we have to shoot in black and white because I don't want to worry about color temperature. So right away, there's so much that's already set up for me. I have one apartment that looks pretty old, and I have just the sun coming out, and the setting is going to be in black and white. So then from there, I said, what can I do that can be believable? And I like science fiction, but obviously, if I made a film that had to do with like futuristic, I don't know, some robot or some astronaut, it wouldn't be believable because of the aesthetic of the setting that I'm in. So I used the setting that I'm in and everything I was given to then write something. And I said, you know what? If I'm given this gritty location and I write a gritty story, it's just going to help each other out, and it's actually going to enhance it, and it's actually going to seem like it was purposeful. And I think that's what happened. So using one location, and like I said, with the limitations that I had, it just inspired like, okay, I got to have something pretty much happen here. There's this outside world that we barely really see, and and then when it came to the storytelling aspect of it, very heavily inspired by the French New Wave and the '90s indie film boom, because these were filmmakers that just went out there and shot in natural daylight. So that's how I knew it was possible to do. And I heard them talking about, Christopher Nolan with The Following. He was saying like, we shot in black and white, didn't have to worry about color temperature. And I heard other, filmmakers say that as well. So that they were a huge inspiration for me to stop coming up with excuses and to actually go out and do it. and also that like even though I didn't have all the technical things on my side at this time, it should never ever really be a negative towards me and my storytelling. And that's what makes you think harder. And then the story itself, very heavily inspired by Mean Streets, which is Scorsese's. I'm a big Martin Scorsese fan, and that was his like second film. The first one was Robert De Niro, and I loved it. I loved it so much. And then I try to have my character. I actually did take some of the characters' names from the films. Obviously, they were different, but um, yeah. And I honestly, of course, I can talk about all these movies, but I really feel like what comes to mind is definitely the limitations, and I'm really
Yeah,
glad for them because it makes you think outside the box and makes you try to, do things differently and have
right.
characters look into the camera, have the camera in all these cool locations, and like even though it's my first narrative short, I love when I go to festivals and I have another director come to me tell me that they love the briefcase shot or like they love the bag shot,
Mhm.
where like we put the camera inside the bag where there's supposed to be something and the characters open up the bag and they're looking right into the camera, or like how the briefcase has so much importance. So we put it right in front of the camera out of focus as the characters are talking about it all the way in the background in focus and they're pointing to it. So like those are all things that I feel like because I didn't have 20 locations, I had so much time to spend on this one room. I was like, okay, what can I do to show importance? And I don't know if I answered the question about what inspired me,
Totally did, and more. I love it. I'm just like vibing with everything you're saying, and
but
definitely your external kind of influenced your internal. So I think that is so awesome and innovative, like I said. So those shots that you speak of, like inside the bag shot, that briefcase
Mhm.
shot, I really like the one that you just mentioned. He like had that one shot looking at the camera, which is
Yeah.
really cool. What was the process of coming up with that? Was that all beforehand when you were kind of like coming up with a shot list or things you discovered in the moment?
So much of it was beforehand. I mean, I had
Mm,
the definition of a skeleton crew, and honestly, this is not like I hate talking about it in such a negative context because it really isn't. It really is not. I Having such a small crew, there's so much room for creativity and so much room to work with other people who are just as creative or even more creative than you. But again, so to answer your question, all these shots were definitely done in pre-production and going to the location multiple times because it was my buddy's apartment as well who was helping me out with it, so I was hanging out there a lot. And yeah, one of my favorite shots from the film was inspired by the great director Spike Lee. I mean, I wanted to be very experimental because I love that. It's honestly like I love that so much. I think with the medium of film, you're able to convey such emotion that might not be realistic
right,
in actual life. So, like for instance, there's this scene where Charlie, the main character, has to go outside. It's supposed to be very dramatic. It's actually the first time we ever see the outside world. So I wanted it to be very dramatic. So me and my dad, we built a at-home double dolly, and we got a wheelchair. We have a plank of wood that we put wheels on it, and we attached it with rope. So now the camera was on the wheelchair, and the actor was on this piece of wood. So then when
wow,
we pull the camera on the wheelchair, you get that double dolly effect where the character is almost like floating within the room, or like doesn't really look like they're walking. And so that was a really cool shot I spent a lot of time on in pre-production to really emphasize that he's going in the outside world for the first time, which is supposed to
right.
be a very, very big deal. And then all the other shots were just things that I came up with in, pre-production. And again, it was the creativity of being, you know, stuck in one room. I said, okay, he's going to show him something in the bag. I don't want it to just be a wide, like, let's go inside the bag. And the
Mhm.
audience doesn't see what it is until the next shot afterwards. I've gotten a lot of compliments on that one, which I always thought was funny. And then again, the one with the briefcase, showing it in the, foreground out of focus and the characters in the background in focus. That was from Hitchcock. He always does that. The film itself that was very famous for it. Oh my God, it has slipped my mind. But a lot of these things came from studying directors and planning so much
Mhm.
in pre-production and thinking, okay, what can I do that does push the story forward, but is also very creative. I feel like
Mhm.
in pre-production, if I could come up with those two things, I was like, okay, we're gonna do it. And all these things I mentioned did not cost a lot of money. Like these were just thinking hard about it. And I'm not perfect, so I can't wait to just continue to do that later on and just become better at it. So yeah.
I love it. Love where your head's at, and it's like the definition of indie filmmaking. Like you're making your own dolly. It's so awesome. I love to hear stuff like that. So talk to me about the cast and the crew. Was most of the cast members, were they also the crew members?
No, no,
Okay.
no.
I
Uh,
saw someone's name in the credits that played one of the characters, and then they also I think they were the gaffer too. One person's name was
Yes, yes. So Nick Sisti, my good friend Nicholas Sisti, talented musician, amazing writer. We just shot a film at the end of January, this past January, which is funny because that's the same time we shot Bad Beat. but and he actually starred in it. But that was actually Nicholas's that was his apartment, and he's always helped me out with things creatively, and he was a good assistant director to have on set. And then we actually needed somebody to be on the phone, and his name was Bruce, and so we used him to be Bruce. And so that's why his name is there as like assistant director and also one of the actors. But no, all the other actors, they were found on Backstage. And yeah, I mean, this was during the end of 2020 to the beginning of 2021. So as we know, it was a lot of you know things happening with COVID. I had people, tell me like, "Hey, I'm getting sick," so I had to be prepared for that. So I saw, those were things that were just unforeseen. You can't do anything about it. You're like, "Oh my goodness, you're sick." I mean, what am I gonna do? Make you come to set and get everyone else sick? We can't have that. So I
Yeah.
casted everybody, and I think things happen for a reason. I mean that's the way I look at it. And
Mm.
it was so funny. The one character, Nikki, who was played by the talented Dominic Cost, the guy with the long hair. He was the only person who was originally casted. I still have his tape from February of 2020. So it was like right before the world exploded. That's when
Uh-huh.
I was doing the casting call for him, and I always kept in contact with him. The other two, unfortunately, I had to get somebody a little bit more closer to shooting, but I got everybody off online. And you know what? Even with all the limitations, I gotta tell you, Sophie, I was so excited because it was the first time I had um, actors. And it's the first time I had a script. It's the first time I was able to just be a
Yeah.
director. Of course, I had to do a lot more than just direct, but
Mm.
yeah, as my first narrative to cast people, it was the coolest feeling ever, and they wanted to be there, and it was an awesome experience.
Amazing. Oh, I can tell you're so proud of it, as you should. It's so wonderful. So, did a lot of that change? I mean, you started this before the pandemic and then the world shut down. Did you have to adapt a lot, or was it always in this one location, or that was all because of the pandemic?
Um, no, I always wanted to keep it one location because I mean, honestly, the every director has a different style. I'm never gonna tell a director what to do because I just feel
Mm,
that people. I mean, of course, people are better than me, and people can adapt better than I can to certain situations. But I don't know. I kind of have a gut feeling, Sophie, of like I need to perfect directing in one room before I go to 20 different
mhm,
locations. I mean, I've been on set where I have, where I'm not director, obviously, and then I have to go to all these different locations. And we spend like 2 hours with
right,
traveling and bringing all this stuff. And the first thing comes to, now, this, I don't know what the director's vision is. The first thing comes to my mind is like, when are we going to have time to do anything creative? Sure, we can set up the
yeah,
camera and have the actor say their lines, but anyone can do that. So I just wasn't, I feel like I need to perfect being in one location and in one room, and then I would be ready for everything. And there was a good interview at Martin Scorsese in '95 when talking about Casino, and I can't quote him exactly, but he said, he doesn't like reading scripts when it's from like a kid and some guy runs into a room with a gun. He's like, that's not realistic or whatever. And it's funny to hear him say that. And he says, why don't you make a short film about a guy waiting on the bench for the bus? It's 3 minutes. And he's like,
mm,
now you really have to think, now you really have to show how's he waiting for the bus, what feelings is he going through. He's like, now you really, really have to think. And that little short quote that he said just always stuck with me. And that's yeah. And honestly, the film I just shot was in one location again, and I think I
mhm,
evolved a lot, and I feel very confident now of just expanding and expanding and expanding.
right,
But yeah, I love shooting in one location, and I love watching feature films that, oh my gosh, have such a great scene that's in one location. I eat that up because I always look at that and I go like, that could be its own short film. Like there's the setup. Oh my god, now we're already into the second act. It's like brilliant. So
mhm.
yeah, it was always something I had in mind before the COVID pandemic.
So awesome. So, my last question for you, because we're running out of time, is
Yeah.
how it feels to be screening at Garden State Film Festival. It's like right near your hometown in New Jersey. How are we feeling?
I feel very excited. I remember being in New York and I was waiting for the subway to come, and it was a pretty rough week. And I remember getting the notification that I had gotten in, and it meant a lot to me. I screenshot it, sent it to my crew, I sent it to a few friends of mine. So I'm very excited to screen there. I've looked at the other films. Just to be a part of the other films that are screening is pretty amazing. I mean, I was looking at all the features and what's the actors who are part of the work as well, the honorees. So just to have Bad Beat and just to be associated with anything, it's just incredible. So I'm very excited, very thrilled, and very humbled to be a part of such a great festival in New Jersey. I can't wait, honestly.
Me too. I gotta tell you, David, it has been such a pleasure. Just like I know I wasn't interjecting a lot because it's been so great just hearing you talk about your work and films because you could tell you're so passionate about it and you're constantly learning. You're gonna bring what you learned from this process to the next, and I think it's awesome. One of the things I saw in your bio that I thought was super interesting too was that you didn't go to school for filmmaking, but you've been making kids movies since you were a kid, constantly creating so quickly. Super quick, what is the reason why do you like films? What makes you create films? What makes you a storyteller? I don't know how you're gonna
Well,
answer this quickly, but
well, in a very quick answer, whether I like it or not, I feel like I'm a prisoner of storytelling because I can't even listen to music regularly. People ask me, "What do you listen to?" I have the strangest music because all this music is when I listen to something comes into my head
yeah.
and it's a story. So whether I like it or not, everything I listen to is always a story. And then I just
Mm.
feel like, filmmaking is the best way to express that ever since I was young, and that's kind of what I've been doing. So that's my quick answer.
Love it. Awesome. David, thank you so much. Congratulations to you and everyone involved in Bad Beat. Let me tell you guys how you can see it and meet David because you're coming to the festival, right? Yeah,
Yes,
you're
absolutely.
yeah, of course. It will be playing Sunday, March 26th at the Berkeley Hotel in the Kingsley Ballroom in the film block 12 to 2:15 p.m. So definitely check it out. Meet this writer and director here, collaborate, network. It'll be a great time. Thanks again. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you so much for interviewing me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. I'll see you at the festival.
Bye.